$64,000 question, Coronation Street, and you bet, follow Central News.
In Central News tonight, court told how an MP sexually abused a schoolboy for 2 years.
Teacher sacked for smacking pupil sets up her own classroom.
The Hover team going where no man has gone before.
And why Robin has the freedom of Sherwood thanks to Hollywood.
Good evening and welcome to Central News in the East Midlands. A witness in a child abuse trial has told the court he was sexually abused by a Member of Parliament.
The witness named Leicester West MP Greville Janner while giving evidence at the trial of 3 social workers who are accused of subjecting children in care to a 13-year reign of terror.
30-year-old Paul Winston, who said he spent all his young life in various children's homes, claimed the assaults took place when he was just 13 years old. Questioned by Defence Counsel Mr John Black at Leicester Crown Court, Mr Winston explained he first met Greville Janner MP during a school trip to the House of Commons. At the time, he was in the care of Leicestershire Social Services. He went on to allege the assault took place while they were staying at Leicester's Holiday Inn. He said he met the MP at the hotel on a number of occasions, and sometimes he stayed overnight. Asked by Mr Black if he wanted the relationship to happen, he replied, "No, I did not, and I told him so afterwards." Questioned about his reaction to this sort of behaviour, the witness said he became accustomed to the gifts he was receiving, such as toys, money, clothes and visits to expensive restaurants, so he just went along with it. Later he said he was invited to spend the weekend at Mr Janner's home in London and claimed the abuse went on for 2 years. After completing his evidence, Mr Winston left court surrounded by representatives from a national newspaper. Under cross-examination by Peter Joyce QC, he had admitted that when he was initially interviewed by police investigating child abuse at the home, he never mentioned the allegations about Mr Janner. On trial is 49-year-old Frank Beck, who denies 27 charges of physical and sexual abuse. The accused had been in charge of 3 Leicestershire children's homes. Also in the dock are 2 other social workers, Peter James, who denies 3 charges, and George Lincoln, who denies 1 charge of abusing children in care. The trial, now at the end of its 8th week, continues.
A teacher who was sacked for allegedly hitting pupils was back at work today, but not at the school where she was deputy headmistress for 14 years. Instead, parents campaigning to have her reinstated took their children out of school so she could teach them in a temporary classroom.
Karen Humphreys, sacked a week ago by Derbyshire education officials over the alleged disciplinary method she used at a primary school in Stanley, was today back in front of her pupils. This time at the home of a local parent. Parents who are furious over the sacking set up the impromptu day-long class in protest.
I think Mrs Humphreys upset just a few of the parents. But unfortunately, if parents who are upset say things enough times and loud enough, people have to take notice. It caused a lot of problems for the governors and the education department by these continuous petty allegations. I think in the end they just got fed up with it and decided she'll have to go.
Mrs Humphreys received her sacking notice a week ago. She's been suspended for almost a year, following allegations stretching back more than 6 years. They include claims that she struck pupils and smoked in front of them, allegations she denies. But today she was back with her pupils, teaching them in a house which was once a former station master's home and ticket office.
I am both, very, very delighted, yes. I couldn't have hoped for a better reception.
I believe in Mrs Humphreys and the way in which she teaches.
If they're not taught correctly, it's very difficult to correct them at a later stage, and we feel that her teaching methods are the methods that should be given to the children now.
Well, I was in Mrs Humphreys' class for 3 years. And in that time, I've never seen her hit or even smack a child. And when I had a problem, I'd just tell her and she'd explain things exceptionally well. I didn't know how to read, write or do arithmetic at my old school. And when I came here, Mrs Humphreys taught me to do all those things, plus extras, like play chess, play cards.
She's a good teacher?
Yeah, very.
I am a sacked person. I am an independent civilian at the moment. I had a whole day with my union representative yesterday, and he is quite convinced that we may get justice at an appeal, and he said the union will rigorously pursue the appeal, even possibly to tribunals beyond that.
The Education Authority, which has refused to discuss the issue, says it's not considering taking any legal action over today's protest by the parents.
Staff and patients have started a campaign to stop the threatened closure of a large ward, which could lead to the loss of dozens of beds. There's concern that the future of the whole hospital may be in doubt, following a series of cutbacks in health services in the area.
The geriatric ward at St Luke's Hospital in Market Harbour in Leicestershire cares for up to 52 patients. The Health Authority says many come from Leicester, 15 miles away, and they're hoping to find them alternative beds in the city. It says the quality of care won't be affected, quite the reverse. But following the closure of the maternity unit, the shutting down of local chiropody clinics, and the threat to nighttime casualty wards, doctors and patients are concerned that the authority plans to centralise more and more services to save money.
We're concerned because there's constant chipping away at NHS resources, particularly in the periphery of the county. Only yesterday I was trying to fight for the casualty service at night in our cottage hospital. Today it's St Luke's. Another service looks like going. We're constantly trying to get our old people admitted to long stay beds, and there's less and less available.
The Health Authority says Market Harbour enjoys a better level of service than most similar outlying towns, but patients and their relatives are not convinced.
My own mother was in St Luke's for quite some time, and the suggestion was put to us that we put her into a private nursing home. So we were, put under pressure to do that to a certain extent. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, she died before we had to make that decision.
A hospital spokesman said the future of St Luke's is safe. But Harbour MP Sir John Farr has been critical of the Health Authority, saying it's guilty of constantly breaking promises. Local councillors too are incensed at the way no one has been consulted.
Well, I think the way in which it's been handled has been absolutely appalling, and I think the reaction from the town over the next few weeks will be a very angry one, and I think everybody will be fighting hard to save what is now left of the health service in the town.
The philosophy seems to be that the NHS is no longer providing these services, they must go to private accommodation, which causes quite a lot of hardship and causes us quite a lot of problems because we provide short stay in Market Harbour District Hospital, but then if somebody needs long stay, we've got to actually offload them to St Luke's, and if those beds aren't available, then we're stuck.
Leicestershire Health Authority says no firm decision has yet been taken on the size of the geriatric unit at St Luke's.
You're watching Central News in the East Midlands. Still to come tonight, new murder lead. Is this the mask of a killer? Fox hunting video goes to MPs in new bid to ban hunting. And carry on up the Yangtze, more bother for the hover team.
Police looking for the killer of a 46-year-old chef say they have a new lead. They found a mask in the victim's home. It's thought Tony Hendley was killed after disturbing burglars.
Derbyshire detectives believe the distinctive knitted mask was almost certainly worn by the killer or his accomplice.
It was found within the house. It's alien to the house. Obviously, the family don't own it. We rather suspect that it either came off in the struggle with Mr. Hendley at the top of the stairs, and it appears to be brand new and a manufactured item as against a hand-knitted one.
It's now a week since Mr. Hendley's murder. He was attacked in his home at Bredsall and died in hospital. His wife was also hit over the head. She survived. The knitted mask has been tested by forensic scientists, and police believe it's only a matter of time before the killer is caught.
We've got a lot of lines of inquiry going, and hopefully this man will be in the cells very, very shortly.
Detectives are appealing to any shop which stocks similar masks to come forward with lists of customers.
An inquest opened today into the death of a mother found strangled in a park. The body of Gillian Wheelhouse, who was 26, was found on Wednesday, hidden in bushes at the King George V playing fields in Nottingham. A 22-year-old man appeared in court yesterday, charged with her murder. Coroner Peter Jenkins-Jones adjourned the inquest after hearing medical and identification evidence.
Britain's MPs are to be given copies of a video which led to the resignation of senior members of one of the country's most famous hunts. The video was filmed by a member of the League Against Cruel Sports who infiltrated supporters of the Quorn Hunt in Leicestershire. The League says the hunt was breaking its own rules by throwing a captured fox to the hounds. The organisation hopes MPs will be persuaded to join their campaign to get hunting banned.
Miners at a loss-making pit are working their final shift. The colliery will close down when they clock off at 10 o'clock tonight. About 250 miners are expected to volunteer for redundancy. Another 350 will be offered jobs at other pits.
Gedling Colliery near Nottingham has lost £4.5 million this year. British Coal says the pit has geological problems and it'll cost too much to mine the remaining coal reserves. Last week, unions at the pit voted not to fight the closure plan. The 590 miners have been given the choice of either redundancy or another job at a nearby pit. The closure of Gedling means there are now 13 working pits left in the Nottinghamshire area. 10 have closed since the miners' strike of 1984 to 85. And a report written for the government on coal privatisation, which was recently leaked by the Labour Party, has suggested that more pits may close once British Coal is sold off.
A team of doctors and scientists are to make a second expedition along one of the most hazardous rivers in the world, the Yangtze in China. They'll journey in a specially designed hovercraft along parts of the river which were considered unnavigable until recently. Their aim is to bring medical supplies to remote tribes and also to provide them with new technology.
The team, which is led by Dr. Mel Richardson from Loughborough University, will return to the Yangtze next September. They'll navigate the river on the only craft capable of withstanding the dangerous and volatile conditions on the Tibetan Plateau in western China, where the Yangtze comes down from a height of more than 16,000 feet above sea level. On the last trip in the hovercraft, doctors saved the lives of hundreds of children and elderly people by ferrying out supplies of the latest Western drugs and inoculations. The Yangtze is the only possible way of getting to them, as access by land is cut off by a huge mountain range. The scientists encountered savage hailstorms, intense heat and gale-force winds. This time they'll take more medical supplies and also solar cookers, water purifiers and other much-needed appliances. They're hoping a similar hovercraft is likely to be used by medical teams all over the world to reach the parts other transport systems can't yet get to.
And the best of luck to them, I bet they need it. That's about it for the moment. Coming up after the break, why the Prince of Thieves is going free. The Magpies signed their first £1 million man. And the dream machine that's really green.
When we launch a new Ford, you're in the driving seat. You demanded more power. We gave you a turbocharged engine, tough independent front suspension, high-performance braking, and precision steering. And you demanded all this in a Ford big and powerful enough to deliver nearly 2 tons. The new generation Transit.
Pictionary, £22.99. Lego Eurofreight line, £59. And a baby Shivers doll.
For low, low prices this Christmas, Argos takes care of it.
And one more thing. Can you tell me when I'm going to get my new checkbook?
You haven't run out of checks, have you?
No, but I am getting a bit short.
Don't worry, your checkbook should be with you any moment. The system picks up automatically when you need a new one. But I'll chase it along to make sure.
Great, thank you.
Oh, by the way, when you get your new checkbook, it'll be green.
Green.
Customers have told us they like them better.
And the customer's always right.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. Just so long as it gets to me in time, all right?
I'll get onto it right away.
How about you? Understand that form yet?
Oh, every word. He's a very clever young man.
Probably the brains behind the green checkbooks.
Help and advice in simple terms from Lloyds Bank.
Welcome back. Kevin Costner, star of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, is to be given an honorary award for his contribution to tourism. The swashbuckling movie hero has been picked for his outstanding performance in the film, which has attracted hundreds of extra visitors to the region.
The breathtaking feats of the man who robbed from the rich to give to the poor have once again fired the imagination of moviegoers. So far, they've paid more than £18 million at the box office to see Kevin Costner's Prince of Thieves spectacular. Now the American film star is being considered for Nottinghamshire's first ever Freedom of the County Award. Officials believe his huge success has made a significant contribution to tourism in the region.
It's created a lot of business, a lot of interest in Nottinghamshire. I mean, previously in Nottinghamshire it was Brian Clough and Nottingham Forest, but now Robin Hood's really back in the frame, and Kevin Costner's done a lot to develop the tourism potential of Nottinghamshire. And we've had something like, in a period of 1 month, 800 extra people coming to Nottinghamshire.
It cost the filmmakers $50 million to recreate the Robin Hood legend. The actors never got to grips with the English accent, but what does it matter? Costner was always keen to bring out the humour of Robin.
How many? 20. 20? How many? 5. You can't count anyway. Come on. Why scare them?
Ironically, not one single scene from the movie was shot within 100 miles of Sherwood Forest or Slab Square in Nottingham. But that doesn't seem to bother the council officials.
I think that's irrelevant. I mean, people know Robin's from Sherwood and the major oak is here. I mean, we have far better weather than other parts of the country as well, so I'm not bothered that it wasn't filmed here.
It'll be Nottinghamshire's first Freedom of the County Award, a prestigious honour for the chosen few.
I think good stories endure, and Robin Hood has always seemed to be a really good story.
Well, coming up in sport tonight, Notts County signed Sheffield United striker Tony Garner in a £1 million move. Forest skipper Stuart Pearce on England's biggest game since the World Cup. And England cricketer Chris Lewis bowls into Trent Bridge. Well, first the big soccer story. Hard up Notts County dug deep into their pockets today to sign Sheffield United striker Tony Garner in a deal which will cost them £1 million. They know all about Garner in Nottingham. He scored when Sheffield United thrashed Forest 4-1 last month, and again when United were beaten by Notts at Bramall Lane. With 42 goals in 100 league games, most people thought he'd moved to a glamour club. But some smooth sales patter from Notts chairman Derek Pavis and manager Neil Warnock sold him the attractions of Meadow Lane.
Both plain speaking, they seem quite genuine, I'm sure they are. And you know, it's just that really. I really look towards the people I'm going to be working with rather than perhaps the amount of money I'll be working for.
The fee for Garner is a major outlay for a club like Notts, but Warnock says it doesn't mean they'll have to sell players to recoup cash. He and Chairman Pavis have a vision of building the club into a First Division force, and they say they're well on the way to doing just that.
Over the last few years, we've put the club on a sound financial basis, and we have a lot of assets on the field. So although it is a lot of money to pay out, I know the chairman knows that we have a lot of assets, so it's not the end of the world. And a club that's looking to progress as we are, I think it's superb that the chairman's backed me with the go-ahead to sign something like Tony.
But the chairman, the manager and his new player know that if Notts are to be members of the Premier League next season, Garner has to score the goals which will prevent them sliding into a relegation battle this term. Well, there's plenty of time for Garner to settle in at Notts because there are no First Division games tomorrow. That's because England have a vital European qualifying game in Poland next week. Nottingham Forest's Stuart Pearce and Des Walker are in a squad which is just one game away from the European finals.
England may be going for a radical change of tactics. They've certainly been moving the goalposts. England manager Graham Taylor has enjoyed preparation for the Poland game with as much enthusiasm as his squad. Next week in Poland, England will be relying on dependable players like Forest skipper Stuart Pearce. And David Platt, who's returned from Italy, where his club Bari are bottom of the table. but his attention is firmly focused on England's task in Poland next Wednesday. Platt and Stuart Pearce are certain of their places, but Pearce says he doesn't take his England shirt for granted.
I don't think particularly anyone in the squad at the moment can turn around and say they feel secure, because the way things are, and there's a lot of good players coming through and everyone's vying for positions, and you've always got the threat of injury hanging over your head, which might miss a game. I mean, you could get a bad injury and you're out for months, you know, so really you've just got to be thankful that you're in the side if it gets picked.
It's a fact that England always seem to meet Poland in crucial matches in major international tournaments. David Platt knows it's going to be a difficult match, but he's confident of England's success.
It's going to be very difficult, but one thing's for certain, it's going to be very difficult for the Poles as well. They need to get a result out of it. We need to get a result out of it. We're quite confident. We met up on Friday, 6 days before the game, and we're already geared in. Our minds are geared into the fact that we know what we've got to do. We know that we've got to go over there. We've got to try and win the game. If we don't win the game, then we come away with the draw. If we get either one of those results, then we qualify for Sweden. That's the important thing. There's no point in even thinking about the Irish result in Turkey because it's irrelevant to us. It's going to be a difficult game, yeah, but like I say, it's going to be difficult for the Poles as well.
Even defenders, like Pearce's Forest teammate Des Walker, have been practising their shooting skills. England managed to qualify for the 1990 World Cup after a draw in Poland. Stuart Pearce remembers a tense and nervous game.
We had a tight game there before. We needed, obviously, to get a point to qualify, I think. We went out there and got a draw, but if we were honest with ourselves, possibly we deserved to get beat on the night. They played very well, and as I say, we were lucky to hang on.
So England face another tricky match against Poland. They've certainly prepared thoroughly at the training camp at Bisham Abbey this week. As twilight approached, the players had a final team talk for the day, realising they'll have to pull together to beat the Poles.
Well, there may be no First Division matches tomorrow, but plenty of soccer to watch. And in tomorrow's league matches, transfer-listed Ali Mocklin, who's thinking over a move to Motherwell, is included in Leicester's squad for the game at Watford. The best he can hope for, though, is a place on the bench. Ted McMinn is doubtful for Derby's game at Wolves. He's still suffering from a thigh strain, and he's seen a specialist today. Well, now cricket, and Nottinghamshire have signed England all-rounder Chris Lewis on a 6-year contract. Lewis is the club's second major signing of the close season. He joins the New Zealander Chris Cairns, who's been brought in to replace Franklin Stevenson. It was a public signing, not showing how ambitious they are to continue the success of the last decade by persuading the best players to come to Trent Bridge. Lewis was wanted by just about every other county, but he's certain he made the right choice.
They just best fit basically what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a club where I can grow as a cricketer. Ideally, I would have liked that to be in the Midlands, which it is, because for a number of years now I've lived in the Midlands and I'm very comfortable here. Out of all the clubs I spoke to, Nottingham offered the best opportunity for Chris Lewis to grow in the manner that I wanted to, basically.
Notts will pick up more trophies, and playing regularly on the Test match stage of Trent Bridge will, Lewis believes, help his international future too.
I'd like to think from now on I will have a consistent run in the England side and become a part of the setup, a long-term part of the setup.
Well, elsewhere, Nottingham rugby coach Alan Davis will carry on coaching Wales despite their disaster in the World Cup. Davis has been told by the Welsh Rugby Union that they recognise how little time he had to prepare for the World Cup. And the England fullback Simon Hodgkinson, who played only one game in the finals, has changed his mind about retiring. He'll turn out for Nottingham against Wasps tomorrow.
Thanks, Steve. A retired Nottinghamshire engineer claims he's built the ultimate in green transport, an electric car which does 40 miles an hour and costs just pennies to run.
You don't have to talk about being environmentally friendly to Douglas Lang. He's been leading the way for years. When he retired in 1981, he set about using his skills as an engineer to produce his own electric car. He bought a brand new Ford Escort, ripped out the engine, gearbox and petrol tank and replaced it with milk float batteries and a motor from a US Navy torpedo. Now, not only has he got some of the cheapest transport available, but there's no pollution, and the electric power plant even helps replenish the ozone layer.
When I retired,
wanted to continue motoring, but on a reduced income, the cost is high, as you know. So the aim was to cut the cost of everyday motoring.
And that he's certainly done. He reckons his weekly running cost is just 50p, using off-peak electricity.
Oh, what a wonderful motor car, is the greatest ever seen. It used to be black as me father's hat, now it's 40 shades of green. On TV and the radio and in every public bar, the burning question of the day is Rafferty's motor car.
It takes just 7 hours to recharge the green machine. Then it's good for 40 miles at 40 miles an hour. He gets a 25% reduction on his insurance. He pays no road tax, and servicing, well, that's a joke.
Once a month you've got to put some distilled water in it. What a damn nuisance.
The idea, of course, is not new. Electric vehicles have been around for years, but they've never been successfully developed as a family car. But despite its limited range, Douglas says he can't understand why they've not been developed as runabouts. His is now 10 years old, and he's done 58,000 miles in it, and it's still going strong.
Some likewise reject it on its top speed of 40 miles an hour. Little do they realise that in the city they're doing 38 miles an hour, which they shouldn't be, and so am I.
Douglas used the torpedo motor just because it's cheap, light and roughly the right shape to fit in the engine space, along with the other gubbins. He reckons the total cost of the conversion was about £1,000.
It's so utterly simple. Batteries driving an electric motor, and you press that pedal to go and that pedal to stop, just like a dodgem car.
Well, it sounds just like my car anyway. Now, the rest of today's main stories. The Conservatives have suffered a trio of by-election setbacks. They lost Kincardine and Deeside to the Liberal Democrats, Langbath in Cleveland to Labour, and they were forced into third place in Hemsworth. Prime Minister John Major shrugged off the results, saying the swing to Labour was far below what they needed to win a general election. Hong Kong has started moves to deport more Vietnamese boat people. Some of them clung to railings as they were carried aboard a ferry. That's about it from us for tonight. Vera's back with the late news. Soccer tomorrow, I believe, Stephen. Some exclusive pictures as usual.
You can't see him, he's not there.
He's still there. We all know he's there, though. Are you actually going to go
there.
and see Robin Hood this weekend? The only person in the country who hasn't seen it.
I was thinking about it. I might do. I want to go and see that other film, The Commitments, as well.
Oh, well, and think about the tourism. Anyway, whatever you're doing, have a great weekend. We'll be here throughout the weekend and back on Monday. Good night.
Good night.
We had a really good end to the week with plenty of sunshine about today, and there it is with those clear skies pushing in this morning. There were a few showers in there, but they didn't really amount to much. The next lot of weather we've got coming is from the Arctic, so no prizes for guessing how cold it's going to be over the weekend. This morning's cloud you can see there clearing England and pushing off down into Europe, so that grey weather we had from it is going to be in northern and central Europe through Saturday, looking a little bit like that. Sunshine around the Med then, but that rain will be moving down there for Sunday. And the brighter weather we're having at the moment will start pushing down into Europe and taking this much colder air with it, so the rest of Europe is going to start tasting winter as well. And considering the time of the year, the weather for the weekend here could be an awful lot worse. In fact, Sunday is going to be the best day we've had for ages. We'll look at that in a tick. Keeping these clear skies for the first part of tonight, so it's going to be quite cold, bit of ground frost and maybe some icy patches. Temperatures